Alhamdulillah الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Praise be to Allah who has guided us onto this. And if it hadn't been for the guidance of Allah, we would not have been guided. So the topic for tonight, I chose the title to be Analysis of a Paralysis. And it's kind of a little maybe curious, to select this title, but it is, a feeling that I have, and I've been having this feeling over the last few weeks, because of what's been happening in Gaza, in Gaza. And, earlier in the week, I saw this horrific scene on TV where in the northern part of Gaza, bodies were just left in the streets and they were decaying. So it just, it got me wondering. And, the question that I'd like to discuss tonight is the question that I asked myself when I saw that horrific scene. And that is, what is the threshold for action and mobilization? What is it going to take the Muslim Ummah to wake up from its long slumber? And, I don't say this in any disrespectful way, but because I do recognize that there is a small percentage of people who are trying to do something. But I'm just referring to the Muslim Ummah as a whole. What is the threshold? What is it going to take? Obviously, it's not decaying corpse in the streets. Is it the tearing apart of tens of thousands of people? The killing and the injury of tens of thousands of people. Apparently, that's not the threshold either. What is it going to take for the Muslim Ummah to say enough is enough? Is it the crying for help from thousands of children and women? That's not it. What is it going to take for the Muslim Ummah to say, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore? What is it going to take for the almost 2 billion Muslims to come together and intervene? It's really just it's such a curious thing. Out of the hundreds and thousands of decision makers, Muslims and even non-Muslims, is there not one person who can stand up and say, what, this is wrong? Is there not one person that can say or do something? أَلَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ رَجُلٌ رَشِيدٌ. Is there not one person who has the right conduct, as Prophet Lut alayhi salam said? So, my point is not to debate what the threshold is. There might not even be a threshold. But, what I do want to discuss is, the reason for the threshold being so high or maybe even non-existent. I want to get to the root cause of the problem. And, we're talking about disciplines and field of work, but in my field of work, I was trained that the best way to solve a problem is to get to the root cause. You want to get to the root cause of the problem to find the best solution. So what is the root cause for this lack of mobilization? What is the root cause for this, continuation of, business as usual or life as usual? We see the massacres, we see the terror, we see the starvation. We might shed a tear, we might share a post, we might even make a donation, but then we move on with our lives. And we go to work and as if nothing is happening, and as if the genocide takes a pause until we come back from work, eat dinner, and then sit down and watch or listen or read the news. So, the purpose of this talk is not to complain, though I might be sharing my grief. It is also not to instill helplessness, but rather to try to diagnose our condition of paralysis. So again, the question is, what is causing us this state of paralysis, this state of immobilization, this state of moral incapacitation? So in thinking about this, I identified 3 root causes or ailments. And inshallah, we will not only talk about the root causes and the ailments, but we'll also talk about the solutions. But before I get to my root causes, I'm sure a lot of you, and maybe all of you, thought about this. What do you think, in your opinion, are some of the root causes for this lack of mobilization? Yes.
Lack of political clout.
Lack of political clout.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What else?
Fear.
Fear. That's my number one. That's number one on my list. Yes.
Disunity amongst the Muslims.
Disunity, fragmentation among Muslims. Okay. What else?
Not enough iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. Like you
Weakness.
Stand up and, yes, weakness. You will stand up and I will take care of you.
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
If something happens, they will put sanctions on my country or something like that. So that's what it is.
Good, which probably also fall, you can put that under fear, but yeah, weakness and iman, that's good, yeah. Yes, yeah. Yes?
The lack of non-physicalation, like not being physical,
No,
like how much to be physical is not being lazy.
Yeah.
Roughly.
MashaAllah, great job.
Very
So,
nice.
like the lack of energy and lack of motivation.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my list. Number one is fear. Root cause or ailment number two is love, which is interesting. And root cause or ailment number three is despair. So we'll dig into each one of them, inshallah. And we'll talk about, what we need to do to address each one of them. So let's take them one by one. So the first one is fear. Fear of what? Fear of loss. Fear of persecution. Fear of pain. Fear of disruption of our, normal lives, right? So, let's be honest. A little bit of fear is natural, right? That's not a problem. But it becomes a problem when fear is so great that it now controls us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticizes the hypocrites because they feared the Muslims more than they feared Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ رَهْبَةً فِي صُدُورِهِمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. You are more fearful within their chest than Allah. That is because they are a people who do not understand. What don't they understand? They don't understand the greatness of Allah. They don't understand the belief in Allah. And they also don't understand the severity of the punishment of Allah. And there's an important link that is being made here between fear and the health or the existence of Iman. And this link can be seen more directly in this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَتَخْشَوْنَهُمْ فَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَوْهُ إِن كُنتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. Do you fear them? But Allah is more worthy of being feared if you are truly believers. So sometimes, it feels like we are just entitled to be classified as believers because, we were either born into a Muslim family or, we go through some of the motions and the rituals. But we are reminded in Quran and Hadith time and again that belief, Iman, is something that you have to work for. Iman is not just, uttering some words and going through some motions. There are, certain behaviors and characteristics that we need to display so that we can be classified as believers. I'm going to share with you 3 verses that start with إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. إِنَّمَا تُفِيدُ الْحَصْرِ. إِنَّمَا is used in Arabic for exclusivity. So when you hear the verse starting with إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, it means that the believers are only those who are blank. So this is kind of a quick test. I'm gonna share these verses with you. The verses have about at least seven attributes or characteristics of those who are believers, those who can be classified as believers. So as you hear these attributes, ask yourself, Do I have them or not? If you have them, great job. Continue what you're doing. If you don't have some of them, then you've got some work to do. So ready? Here's the first one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِّرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. The believers are only those who, when Allah is mentioned, their hearts become fearful. And when His verses are recited to them, it increases them in Iman, and they rely upon their Lord, they rely. What does that mean, that upon their Lord they rely? That means that they put their trust with Allah. They do not have hope with anyone else, and they do not fear anyone else. These are three attributes so far. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Those who establish prayer, and of what we have given them, they spend. That's the first verse, or the first two verses. How do you do? There's another verse where in Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. The believers are only those who are brothers. Do we treat other believers as brothers and sisters? Are we okay, or can we be okay when our brothers and sisters are being slaughtered? Can we be at peace with ourselves in seeing and witnessing that? Third and last verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. The believers are only those who believe in Allah and His Messenger, and then have no doubts, and strive with their wealth and themselves in the cause of Allah. It is those who are the truthful. So hearts become fearful when Allah is mentioned. Faith increases when we hear the verses of Allah being recited. We rely upon Allah. We establish prayer. We spend in the cause of Allah. We treat each other as brothers, and we strive in the cause of Allah. These are exclusive characteristics of the believers. If we want to be admitted into the believers club, we have to have these characteristics. So we're talking about fear, this first root cause or ailment for the lack of mobilization. What does it mean that hearts become fearful at the mentioning of Allah? In the interpretation of this verse, scholars say that one would be about to do something, and then when they're told, ittaqillah, fear Allah, they stop. So this is stopping at the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is narrated that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu kana waqafan 'inda kitabillah. He used to always stop at the book of Allah. He would slam the brakes, so to speak, and immediately change the course of his actions when he hears a verse that is commanding him to do something other than what he was about to do. It is narrated that one time a man came to Umar ibn Khattab and told him, He ibn al-Khattab, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا تُعْطِينَا الْجَزْلِ وَلَا تَحْكُمُ فِينَا بِالْعَدْلِ. Like, woe be upon you, O son of Khattab. For by Allah, you do not give us generously, nor do you rule over us justly. Look at this. This is a person making this accusation to the commander of the believers. And this accusation could not have been further away from the truth. As we all know, Umar al-Khattab was one of the most just rulers earth had or has ever seen. So he got very upset, and he was about to get up and discipline the man. At that point, Al-Hurr ibn Qais, who was the nephew of the man, and he was of the Qur'an, he was of the people of the Qur'an. And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, he had special reverence for the people of the Qur'an. He would be generous with them, he would honor them, he would consult them. They're part of his inner circle. So what did Al-Hurr ibn Qais say? He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Inna Allah ta'ala qala li nabiyyihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, khudh al-afwa wa'mur bil-'urfi وأعرض عن الجاهلين وإن هذا من الجاهلين. he said, O commander of the believers, Allah has said, Allah the Exalted has said to his prophet, peace be upon him, take what is given freely and enjoin good and turn away from the ignorant. And this one is of the ignorant. He's talking about his uncle. But he basically saved him. So upon hearing that, Ibn Abbas, who narrates this incident, said, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا جَاوَزَهَا عُمَرْ حِينَ تَلَاهَا وَكَانَ وَقَّافًا عَنْدَ كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. By Allah, Umar did not pass this verse when he recited it. And he would always stop at the book of Allah, the Exalted. So if we cannot be like Umar with his justice, or if we cannot be like Umar with his courage, or if we cannot be like Umar with his taqwa, at least let us try to be closer to Umar by stopping at the verses of Allah, by stopping at the command of Allah or the guidance of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When someone tells us ittaqillah, or when someone reminds us of a verse or of a hadith, let's not be arrogant and put ourselves above the verse or above the hadith. Let us put ourselves below the verse or below the hadith and say, Sami'na wa ata'na. We submit, we have heard, and we obey. So that is the first ailment, fear. It is a cause that puts us in a frozen state. How do we overcome this root cause or this ailment? The verses that we went through actually also have the cure. And it was mentioned, Iman. Iman, faith, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and tawakkul, and putting our trust with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is not just saying it, we have to believe it. Allah has promised that if we are with Him, He will be with us. And if we internalize this, that is enough for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that if we lose something in His cause, He will substitute us something that is far better and more lasting, and that is enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us that if we seek honor with Him, He will give us honor. We had the Imam of Masjid al-Aqsa visit the NIS last Friday, and he reminded us of a story when Umar radiallahu anhu went to Jerusalem to get the keys. When Jerusalem was basically, when it surrendered to the Muslims. When Umar reached the city, he was wearing a garment that had 15 patches on it, 15 patches. And this is a man who half the known world at his time was under his command. One of the most powerful people who ever existed. The masjid that he prayed in had pebbles for carpets and palm branches for ceilings. But he was a very humble man. Abu Ubaidah, may Allah be pleased with him, advised him to wear a more presentable garment. So he told him, لو أن غيرك قالها يا أبا عبيدة. Only if someone other than you has said this, O Abu Ubaidah. And then he made his famous statement, and he said, نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام فمهما ابتغينا العزة في غيره أذلنا الله. We are a people who Allah honored us with Islam. No matter how much we seek honor in something else, Allah will humiliate us. He wore a patched-up garment. He had an average ride. He barely had money. He had no bodyguards. And he was hungry most of the time. This is a man who elevated himself above worldly desires. And as a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought for him dunya, this life, on his knees for this man, for Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. So this is the first ailment or root cause. Fear. The cure is Iman and Tawakkul. The second root cause or ailment is love. And it is perfectly natural to love worldly things. But it is very problematic if we give them more love than what they deserve. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. Say, O Muhammad, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your relatives, wealth which ye have obtained, business ye fear to decline, and dwellings with which you are pleased, are more beloved to you than Allah and His Messenger and striving in His cause, then wait until Allah executes His command. And Allah does not guide the defiantly disobedient people. You know, there is nothing wrong in loving these 8 things that are mentioned in the verse. But, and in fact, it is unnatural not to love them. But whoever loves them more than Allah and His Messenger and striving in His cause, then they will need to wait for the punishment of Allah. So what is the cure? The cure is we need to remember that these worldly things are temporary. We will not take anything with us when we leave. So let us make the love of Allah and His Messenger and striving in His cause be the greatest love in our hearts, and then everything else can come after that. The third and last root cause or ailment that I'll mention is despair. And you know, we as Muslims should never feel helpless or inferior. Look at what Prophet Ibrahim a.s. had to say. قَالَ وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. He said, and who despairs of the mercy of his Lord except for those astray. Also listen to what Prophet Yaqub told his sons. يَا بَنِيَّ اذْهَبُوا فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِنْ يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. O my sons, go and find out about Yusuf and his brother and despair not of the mercy from Allah. Indeed, no one despairs of mercy from Allah except the deniers of His ability and disbelievers in Him. And Allah gave both Prophets Ibrahim and Yaqub what they wanted, because they never lost hope. They never fell in despair. They knew all along that somehow, at some point, Allah will make things come through for them. No matter how impossible it seemed, they never denied or doubted His ability. What is the cure for despair? Which, by the way, is one of the kaba'ir. It is one of the major sins. You know, Al-Qurtubi put despair as the second major sin after shirk. Imagine that. Shirk and then despair. And, you know, you could think like, wow, that's really weird. What about zina? What about riba? You know, what about like drinking alcohol? Aren't all of these are major sins? But all of these things are against yourself. Despair is against Allah. Despair is not thinking positively about Allah, right? Despair is thinking negatively about Allah. So what is the cure for despair? The cure is in this hadith, and it is an amazing hadith. And it is a great example of jawami al-kalim. It is an ability that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was given, where, you know, he summons just a few words. And with these few words, he gives such a profound and encompassing meaning. Listen to this hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ النَّصْرَ مَعَ الصَّبْرِ وَأَنَّ الْفَرَجَ مَعَ الْكَرْبِ وَأَنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And know that patience is followed by victory, and that distress is followed by relief, and that hardship is followed by ease. From this hadith, scholars say that anytime things get rough, expect the antidote after that. Expect the change after that. Someone can say, well, you know, let's be honest, I don't really see that. You know, it seems like I just go from, you know, one rough patch only to get into another one. How do you answer that? If someone told you that, how would you answer it? This is a hadith. How would you answer it? How would you defend this hadith? Imam, what do you have to say? I'm going to put you on the spot.
One rough patch to another.
Yeah.
The rough patch in itself may not be, you know, what you think it is. perhaps you're perceiving it wrong.
Okay.
That could be one.
You know, it could be your perception, right? It could be a very good experience for you, right? It could be preventing something, you know, much worse, but you just don't know it.
Or you can, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is elevating your status.
Purifying you.
Purifying
right?
you, yeah.
Yeah.
With all the trials, Allah
Right.
subhanahu wa ta'ala will purify, will take some sins away. And
Right. Yeah. So, you know, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is the truth. So that's not where the problem is. So we have to look somewhere else for the problem. And the problem is in us, right? And scholars say that the problem is that, you know, it's in the weakness of the iman, the weakness in the belief, and not having enough tawakkul, not having, you know, putting enough trust with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also, astaghfirullah, you know, denying or doubting Allah's ability to change things for you, and not thinking positively about Allah. If you think that something better, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring something better, then you are right. And if you think that something better is not coming, then you are right. Because, right? I mean, does that make sense? If you think that Allah is going to bring something better, then you are right. And if you think that nothing better is coming, then you are right. Why is that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Hadith Qudusi, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبِدِي بِي. I am what my slave, what my servant thinks of me. If you think positively about Allah, that Allah is going to bring something good, then Allah will bring that. But if you deny that, or if you doubt it, you're just doing lip service, Allah knows that. So to summarize, what is preventing us from being on the right side of justice is fear, love, and despair. We only need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and put our trust with Him. And we need to make the love of Allah and the love of His Messenger and the love of striving in His cause the most important and the greatest love in our hearts. And we have to make sure that we never fall into despair. We have to make sure that we always think positively about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we never deny or doubt His ability. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who only fear Him, and of those who make His love and the love of His Messenger and the love of striving in His cause the biggest and the greatest love in our hearts. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us fall into despair, and to always make us of those who think positively of Him and never deny or doubt His ability. So I think we have a few minutes. If anyone has any comments or questions, if you thought about any other root causes or ailments for the lack of mobilization, or if you have any comments on anything that I went through.
I think one thing could be, just as a comment, or
Yeah.
perhaps an observation, as time goes by, we become a little desensitized, because we get so much information, especially in the beginning, you know, with social media, we saw so many videos, so many pictures. I feel like in the beginning, for a lot of people, it was a lot, like they couldn't bear it. And as time has moved on, unfortunately, you know, it feels like, you know, we get desensitized very easily.
Yeah, and that is very sad. I mean, just to repeat what the Imam said, that a lot of times you just kind of become desensitized to what's happening, because it's just, you know, a lot of information is being shared every day, and, you know, how do you process all of that while still going about your daily business? How do you, it's just too much to process. And that's really very sad that, you know, it just kind of becomes normal that, you know, 300 people died today, 500 people got killed today. It just kind of, it becomes the norm, right? And it's a sad reality. You know, we were talking about this earlier today, that this is not an easy time to be living in this world. You know, it's a challenge, but you know, we have to be part of making it better. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do collectively and individually, and we just have to make sure, you know, what is the one thing, what are the few things that you can do as an individual, and just make sure that you're doing your part. If every one of us does their part, inshallah, we will make this world a better place to live in. I mean, I think, you know, we were talking about this the other day, that at the end of the day, I think one of the questions that every single one of us has to ask themselves is, what is my net effect? We come and we go. We live for a few decades and then we go. What is your net effect on the world? Did you move the needle? Did you move the needle of the scale of justice? Did you move it at all? And if you did you move it to the right or did you move it to the left? Right? That is, something that we all have to ask ourselves, inshallah. Any other comments or questions?
I think the moving of the needle, if you look at it at the global level, is pretty overwhelming. Because as Muslims, we don't really have a clout in the places where, when decisions are made, affect the lives of thousands of people who live in Palestine, in Gaza, in Kashmir, in Sudan, in any place else that you can name. So to think on a global level, I think it's very overwhelming, because each one of us as an individual really doesn't have a platform. But at a personal level and at the internal level is where we do have the platform to change. Change our own selves, but I think that will only benefit us as individuals. And I really don't know whether that would affect the lives of thousands of people who are going hungry and who are being starved.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I believe that everything is connected and everything is linked. Because yes, while none of us is in a position of power, political power, so to speak, right? Our political leaders don't come from outer space, right? They come from us, right? So if everyone is trying to make sure that they're doing the right thing, and they're educating themselves and their families and their inner circle, then as a whole, inshallah, the net should be positive. We should be getting better and closer to justice, inshallah. But
But that's not happening tomorrow.
it's not happening tomorrow. Yeah, but it'll have an effect. Maybe not the effect that we want to see, immediately, but it'll have an effect. And we should never undermine, the good action that anyone does, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in it. And one person can change the world. One person changed the world. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed the world. One person can change the world. It could be just you having a quick conversation in passing with someone, and you completely change the perspective of that person, and then that person can grow up and become someone very important and have a very profound impact on the world. So that's all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do. Just do what you can. Do what you can. And that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves. Are we doing what we can? At the individual level, at the community level, are we doing what we can? Exactly. And where is this at?
Huh?
Where is it?
In Washington. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everybody for coming for that cold night, and we appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you reward for this. In reference to what we are talking about Gaza, I think there is
Yeah, it looks like there's I've heard about this. I haven't seen any official flyers, but I think this is one of the flyers. There is a march in Washington for Gaza in Washington D.C. on January 13th,
Yes.
Saturday, January 13th at 1 p.m. At the National Mall, 1600 Constitution Avenue.
And also people are trying to get buses also for different places. I think Khair is also working on that. Also, Ikna is having from New Jersey also to get people to go to this. So this is, whoever can go, please join this.
And I think they want to reach 1 million. Like last time it was probably like around 300,000. This time the goal is to reach 1 million. So it's one thing that we can all do. It's easy enough, I think, for most, if not all of us. So inshallah, let's try and do that. Subhanak Allahumma hamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah.
Inshallah, we'll come back after Isha.